let's start. I want to welcome everybody to Live, Learn, Lead at noon and to our new series, which is Sharing Our Stories. And we are thrilled to be bringing this to you. It's a way of just getting to know one another again. It feels like forever since a lot of us have seen one another. And we want to bring our alumni to you so you can hear their stories, how they've been successful in life, what they've done. And it's our little lunchtime way of getting together one more time. So this is our inaugural program. We wanted to kick it off during Black History Month. And we have three incredible alumni that we want them to share their stories with you. First off, before we begin, I want to say thank you to two of our sponsors that have made this possible and support us. And that is Northside Hospital and the Atlanta orthodontic specialist. So thank you to our sponsors for making this possible. What I want to do now is introduce our speakers, our panelists, so we can get to the heart of the program, and those are the folks you really want to hear about. So I want you to first meet Kristen Madison. She is the co-owner of Fast Signs right here in Sandy Springs. Kristen has more than 20 years of work experience working for such companies as Lockheed, where she did government audit work. She's practiced law at Jackson Lewis, which is headquartered in New York. And she's served in various roles with the U.S. Department of Labor in Connecticut, doing corporate HR, and now she is a small business owner. Kristen received her bachelor's degree from the University of Virginia and her law degree from the University of Connecticut. She serves on the board of Leadership Sandy Springs, our board of trustees, and she was a member of our class of 2018. So thank you for that. And she was also she's also on our Live, Learn, Lead committee. And she is also on the board of directors for the Community Assistance Center. Kristen also coaches small businesses, and through her coaching firm, the Madison Coaching Collaborative. I'd like you to meet Ed Ukanu. He is the CEO of IBN Georgia, also known as Indoor Billboard Networks. And this is a digital marketing platform for small businesses and medium-sized businesses. He's also the owner of a real estate holding and property management company. Ed is a successful entrepreneur as well. He has successfully built and sold 3 companies. He's held senior level positions for companies such as PricewaterhouseCoopers, Cybel Systems, and AnswerThink, where he ran team projects for major IT programs for Fortune 500 companies. Ed's passion is helping others. He's very committed to the nonprofits in our community and small and medium-sized business. Ed is also a member of Leadership Sandy Springs Board of Trustees, class of 2019. He is on the board of the Sandy Springs Perimeter Chamber and the Sandy Springs Development Authority. Ed was born in Nigeria, and he came to the U.S. in 1982. And I'd also like you to meet Pam Smith. She's president and CEO of Smith Real Estate Services. It's a commercial real estate and construction services firm here in Sandy Springs. The firm provides construction management for projects such as the Lindbergh Transit Development, the Atlanta Public Schools, and Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. She's negotiated contracts with federal agencies throughout the country, and she's also provided development management services for nonprofits and agencies locally, such as Peoplestown Revitalization, Atlanta Housing, and Invest Atlanta. This is an interesting tidbit to show you how successful Pam is. She started her company with no working capital, no contacts in the industry, and no contracts. And now she's recognized as one of the most prominent firms in the Southeast region of the United States. Recently, Pam was recognized by Atlanta Magazine as one of the 500 most important leaders in Atlanta. She holds degrees and program certificates from Rutgers, NYU, Georgia State, MIT, and Bucknell. Very impressive. She's also received about a page worth of awards and commendations from Governor Joe Frank Harris, Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin, and numerous other awards that all begin with phrases like first African American, first woman, most powerful woman-owned business, Business Hall of Fame, Small Business Person of the Year, and a Phoenix Trailblazer. So with all of those credentials of all of our wonderful panelists, thank you for joining us today. And I would like for Kristen, if you would please kick us off now.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, Ed and Pam. It's good to see you.
Hello, Kristen.
Hey, pleased to be part of today's event and share my story and hear your stories. This is a great opportunity, and thank you to the Live, Learn, Lead Committee for selecting us. So the committee has given us a page worth of questions that they've come up with. I don't know that we will get through all of them today, but I'll start. So Ed, I'll start with you. The first question would be, in your formative years, was there something related to your education, your race, your gender that made you feel like you could not succeed? And how did you overcome it? What did you do?
In my formative years, I actually had the luxury of growing up in Nigeria. And at the time, Nigeria was at its best. I wouldn't think, I come from a family of very accomplished parents, very educated. So I didn't necessarily go through what you would consider a structural or foundational problems or issues that might hamper me. However, I think I dealt with the usual things of peer pressure and all this that, you know, young boys my age at the time dealt with. And basically with a strong family foundation, I think that was crucial in surmounting that. The first experience I had as far as a challenge was when I first came to the United States to go to school here. And I went to a college called State University of New York at Brockport. And in all my life, I had spoken English. The lingua franca for Nigeria is English language. And I always felt I had an awesome command of the language. However, my English teacher thought different because I was from Nigeria. So whenever I took a test in English and in the class, he always gave me a B. And I'll look at all the people who got an A, and I always thought my paper was actually superior to some of them. And I wondered why I was getting a B. So I went up to him one day and I said, I've looked at the A's and mine looks almost as good, if not better. Why didn't I get an A? Well, you should be happy you got a B. You're from Nigeria. That was the first, I would say, challenge I've had with, you know, sort of an impediment to that. So how did I overcome that? I took it up to him and I said that I made it a point that I didn't deserve the B. And they actually had a school panel look at our papers and ultimately gave me an A. So that was my first experience with that.
Gotcha. I think it's amazing that you went to Brockport. I'm from Rochester originally, so it's a small world.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Pam, how about you?
In my world, the world that I grew up in, I felt very self-assured because I constantly received support from my family and my community, which was a middle class Black community in New Jersey. So when I, ventured out into the real world, I, in my mind, knew what I wanted to do, but I left the security of that community and entered a world, that was not openly hostile, but, it was difficult, being a woman, being an African-American woman. It was just, in terms of what I wanted to do, which was to have my own business eventually, there just were not a lot of role models. And then in the process of trying to achieve that goal, oftentimes I would encounter barriers because maybe I was a woman or whatever. So what that made me do was just really focus on furthering my education, which was something that my family drummed into, and particularly my father drummed into my head. You know, you could overcome any adversity as long as you were better prepared and better educated. So I really focused on, you know, I really concentrated my efforts and focused on getting my undergraduate degrees, getting graduate degrees, certificates, and just trying to be the best that I could be. And in the process of doing that, you know, I was able to, you know, break down some walls and you know, deal with the adversities that we all have faced in our careers.
Yeah, I think what I have in common with both Ed and Pam is the strong family foundation and the constant work that our parents have done to make sure that we succeed. Let me just say really quickly, if anybody has any questions, we're going to take them at the end. So put your questions in the chat function and we will do our best to get to them at the end of the session. So for me, I'll actually kind of echo what Pam and Ed have said. I grew up mostly in a suburban neighborhood, and my parents, you know, drilled into me that education was first, that I needed to go to college and gather multiple degrees. And so the one event that kind of smacked me in the face that made me realize that there were some people who believed that I wasn't deserving of my place because of my race was in high school. There was a time in 11th grade where everybody gets their letters about where they're going to go to school. And word had gotten out that I had been accepted to the University of Virginia. And so one day, and I will never forget this, and we probably all have events that happen like this that we never forget. There was a classmate of mine who sat next to me, and he had heard that I had gotten admitted to Virginia. And he leaned over to me and he said, "You know, the only reason why you got into that school is because you're Black." And it just stunned me because I looked at him and I realized the word had gotten out that he had gotten into Berkeley. So I said to myself, I didn't really say anything back to him, but that moment stuck with me for years. I still carry it because it made me feel as though maybe I wasn't deserving of my place. Maybe I couldn't succeed at UVA. But then I realized over the years, he didn't take my SAT for me. He didn't write my exams. He didn't write my essays. He didn't do the work and I did the work. So that was the one event that I think kind of changed my trajectory as far as understanding that even though I could, you know, garner the best grades in the best classes, that somebody thought I wasn't deserving. So, all right. So let me ask a follow-on question that relates to career. Was there something that either of you experienced career-wise that made you question your ability to advance in the field that you wanted to? Pam, you spoke to it a little bit, but was there something that just kind of stopped you in your tracks and made you question whether you wanted to continue on, Pam or Ed?
Well, you know, I started my business 36 years ago here in Atlanta, and there were not a lot of women at the table, or Black women in particular at the table. You know, as a small business owner of a company that provided services in commercial real estate industry, I mean, it was just very difficult at times to be in situations where you were the only one, and feeling that there was a different, you know, criteria that was being used to judge and determine your merit, you know, in terms of your being at the table, even. So, and I'm sure it has experienced similar situations. But since I started the company, which was in 1984 up until today, I can say that there has been some progress, but I think that the region still has a long way to go to really completely embrace diversity and inclusion. But I mean, you know, like I said, you know, it was initially at the early part of my career, it was difficult. But, you know, I had a mission and I had a purpose and I was driven, you know, and then I had started this business and I was a single mother. So I had responsibilities that I had to, you know, I had to take care of. So that was really what kind of drove me beyond all the the challenges and the adversities.
Ed?
In my case, I would say that when I first started my first business, it would be access to capital. I remember getting my first contract, and it was a pretty big size contract. And I went to the bank because I needed to fund the project before we got paid. So I went to the bank to ask for money and or some kind of working capital until we got paid, and was flatly denied. And I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't because of credit. It wasn't because of anything. It's a brand new business, but I had a contract. I didn't walk in there just asking for money. I had a valid contract with me. So I couldn't understand why the bank wouldn't give me the loan I was looking for. However, in that process, I learned two things also, that sometimes, yes, we as African Americans don't have access, as we, often say, but I also learned that I wasn't playing the game right. Because it was the first time that I actually met the bank manager. I usually walk into the bank, make my deposits, and walk away. I had not cultivated a relationship. I had not shared, what my company was doing. So through that process, I learned some things also. However, access to capital was a big challenge, and I ended up surmounting that by going to family and friends who helped me do it, and I made sure that I would make that bank one day come and beg me to take a loan, and I accomplished that, and that was a big deal for me, because I opened up another account, and then they finally started talking to me when they saw my business growing. So that was a lesson of sorts for me.
Okay. I think on the career trajectory, is there one particular mentor that you can recall who really helped you arrive at the place that you are today? Whether that's someone that you worked with, or someone, a friend, anybody who helped you kind of push. I'll start with Ed.
I have two mentors in my lifetime thus far. And one of them is dead now, a gentleman by the name of Robert Dale Jones, who I was introduced to, and we hit it off, and he became very, very impactful in my business life. I met with Robert once a month, and Robert walked me through. He had owned several businesses, and everything he had done in life was along the same path of what I was trying to accomplish myself. Because I realized earlier on in my life that I wasn't cut out to run a big business. I'm just very good at starting businesses, growing them to a certain point, and selling them, and going after the next one. And so that was Robert, and he became very impactful in my life. The second coach, I'm not at liberty to mention his name at this time, introduced me to a process. I think it's a platform called Clifton 34, where I took a profile test, and that profile test identified my 34 traits that I have inherent in me as a human being. And the moment I started aligning everything I did along my top 5 traits, I think I just started enjoying life better. I started enjoying owning my business better. I started enjoying the things I did in my business better. So those were the compelling things I remember. I still remember about my.
Pam?
Yes, there was a gentleman who is now deceased, who was a friend and a mentor to me when I really needed his friendship and guidance. And his name was Otis Thorpe. And I had been in business for maybe about 10 years. And I was really trying to, build a business and grow the business. And not being from Atlanta and coming here and not knowing anybody, Atlanta can be very clannish. And, being an outsider coming here, And not being a part of the Klan, meaning I didn't go to Spelman, I didn't marry someone who went to Morehouse or had some affiliation with any of the HBCUs here, which, as you know, are very important to our social and community fabric here in Atlanta. So this gentleman kind of took me under his wing, and he proceeded to introduce me to some really, important people from Atlanta, civic leaders, politicians, other business owners. And that allowed me to form my network, which has grown a lot over the past 36 years. So, Otis was a friend. He was a confidant, somebody who I would go to when I had problems. And I would be in his office and he would just pick up the phone and say, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" And I would be like, "No, I don't know them. Do you?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, sure. Let me take you over there so you could meet him." So he did that for me. He opened some doors for me and he really helped me. So
I would say for myself, my, besides my parents, my mentor is Shan Cooper. She's the executive director for the Atlanta Committee for Progress. And I first met Shan when she was at Lockheed. I was at Lockheed as well. And I watched Shan move through various roles of increasing responsibility during the 10 years that I was at Lockheed. And finally, she was selected as the site lead and general manager of the site in Marietta, the Lockheed site in Marietta. And Shan did it with such grace. She came in at a time when the plant really needed a lot of support. She came after Lee Bryant, who led the plant really well. But what she showed me is that I could step into a role that I may not have had a lot of experience with, but I knew that I could make my own. I knew I could succeed in the role because I had a lot of supporters. So she taught me, one, to not really say no to a role that's really challenging, but two, you can succeed if you have the right people around you who can support you and push you across the line, so to speak. And Shan actually, she doesn't know this, but kind of gave me the courage to leave corporate. She obviously has left corporate as well, with doing other great things, but she was I would think the catalyst for me believing that I could leave corporate and start my own small business and succeed. So I just really thank her for that. The great thing is that she continues to knock down doors and do great things and show myself and other mentees that she has that the sky is the limit as far as what you can do. If there's something that you think you can't do, go ahead and try it if you're given that opportunity. So I'm really grateful for her. So let's flash back to our youth. Right now, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give to your younger self right now?
Wow. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, you go ahead, Pam. Sorry about that.
Well, I was going to say, relax, breathe, and recite the serenity prayer, which is, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I can, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, I mean, I can recall when I was young, it was very difficult, to practice that and to really believe that, there's some things in life that you're just not going to be able to change, no matter how hard you try. And, when you encounter those types of situations, sometimes the best route is just to move forward. So, and I reflect on when I was a lot younger, I wasn't really able to do that. And I think about all the valuable time that I wasted. So,
yeah.
For me, I think, and this is most unfortunate, but for me, I think I would have told myself to dream bigger, just dream bigger. I have, at this, I'm 50, I'm going to say that out loud here. I'm 57 and a half years old. And in 57 years of my life, I've come to the conclusion that I didn't dream big enough. I have been successful in my life by any standard. However, I could have dreamt bigger. And I've also come to the realization that it takes the same amount of effort for little dreams and for big dreams. So for all of you out there that are listening that are much younger than me, I mean, go for it. Increase your dreams and just go for it. It's going to cost you the same amount of stress, same amount of headache, and same amount of effort. So that's what I'll tell my younger self.
That's great. And I will not tell anybody that you're 57. We'll keep that as a secret. What I would tell myself is that, Kristen, what you're doing is the right thing. You're okay. You're doing okay. Keep going. There's so many times in our life where we think we're supposed to go down a certain road, but we're a little bit nervous about making a deviation, but we're supposed to go down this road, so let's keep going. And the thought about maybe making that right turn, that's the right thought. If that's the thought you have, go for it. Kind of led along the lines that you said, dream big, dream bigger. So but I would look back at my younger self and say, Kristen, the decisions you've made are good. You made them with the knowledge that you had, and you did good. You did good, kid. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hop back real quick to a subject that Pam brought up. Let's talk about HBCUs. And for those who don't know, HBCUs are an historically Black college or university. I did not attend one. Pam did not, and Ed did not. Can you talk a little bit about the decision that you may have made not to apply or attend one? I know there was a decision point for me, but how did that decision come about to not attend? And how do you think it has impacted your progress?
Well, you have to understand that I applied to my school from Nigeria, so I had absolutely no knowledge of HBCUs or anything of the sort. So I applied to the very first school that a friend of mine was already attending. And because I just wanted to make sure I went to a school that I knew someone. And so when I got here, I could have obviously transferred to an HBCU, but for some reason that thought never crossed my mind. So, but I also believe that HBCUs, since you brought up the question, have an incredible role to play in our society. And because I liken it to the first question you asked in the beginning of this session, and when I talked about my upbringing in Nigeria, the power of that upbringing for me was the ability to know that the first lawyer, the first engineer, the first accomplished neurosurgeon or brain surgeon either was a next door neighbor or lived, came to the house and played. That gave me a confidence that no human being on the planet Earth can take away from me. And so I see the HBCU colleges playing the same thing, playing the same type of role, where young Black men and women can go to those schools and develop that confidence that no human being can take away from them.
Pam?
Well, what happened in my situation was that on my way out of high school, I got pregnant. Okay. So that kind of changed everything for me because I had initially planned to go to an HBCU, which for me, because I was raised in Jersey, would have meant that I would have to go out of state. But because of my situation and my responsibilities, I decided to apply to Rutgers University, which is a very, very good school, a state university. And I was admitted to Rutgers University, and that's where I decided to go because I had to figure out early on how to balance, the responsibilities of being a parent with my responsibilities as a student. And I had to get through school. So my situation was kind of unique, but I understand the importance of HBCUs and the tremendous impact that these schools have had on a lot of my peers and a lot of some of the most successful people in this country have attended HBCUs. So I'm a big advocate and a supporter.
Yeah, I did not attend HBCU, but I did apply and did get in, but chose not to go. But I have tons of friends and colleagues who did attend, and definitely see the value and worth and legacy that these schools have put forth with all of the students they've educated. And like Ed said, there's the first, that a lot of them have come out of largely Black colleges and universities. So
Yes.
for me, it just was at that time I was heavy into the US News and World Report rankings of colleges and universities. It was just a numbers game for me. I had enrolled in the best highest ranked college that I could. Not to say that it was the best school from a diversity perspective. I'll share that about a semester into college at UVA, there were some racial incidents on campus at that time, and I'm not sharing my age either, but Doug Wilder was the governor of Virginia at that time, and so there were some issues with people who disagreed with him being the governor of the state. So I sat with my dad and mom and talked about whether I was going to transfer to a HBCU, and I made the decision not to because I felt like I'd be better positioned to speak it out and maybe change some minds of some of the students I knew who were kind of involved in the hubbub, if you will, about the governor being Black at that time. So, so much respect to HBCUs and the students that attended them, because they have forged the way for so many of us. So, the next question I'm going to ask is, did you ever imagine that you'd be doing what you're doing now career-wise? Anybody want to take that?
I don't, well, specifically the business I'm in, no, but I always knew that I would be an entrepreneur somehow. And that goes back to a decision I made, one of the scariest decisions I've ever made in my entire life. And that was when I quit the job with Siebel Systems. I was a director at Siebel, making excellent money. Woke up, came home one day and looked at my wife and my two kids who couldn't even understand what I was talking about. And I said to my wife that I was going to quit my job. Now you have to understand, I had a very good job. I didn't have a problem with the job, no problem with my superiors, no problem with the job or people that I managed. But I had a challenge with, I was coming to question my faith a little bit. You know, I always said I trusted God, but my life had never really been tested. So I decided I was going to take that leap of faith because I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and quit my job. So you can imagine how my wife at the time looked at me and said, "You must be nuts. You know, are you going to give all this up to start a new business?" I said, "Yes. I want to see how true, when I say I trust God, how true that is." And that was the decision that I made, and it scared the daylights out of me, but it has turned out to be the best decision I ever made in my life. So I'm, became an entrepreneur, but the particular businesses I've owned, I didn't envision, but it's, I get led into them one way or the other.
I always knew that I would ultimately become an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And early on in my career, being confronted with certain realities of, working, at that time I was working in the public sector and, being, forced to deal with situations I felt were not fair, based because I didn't know the right person or, wasn't dating the right guy, whatever. So, and then I was responsible for another person, I was a single mom. So I felt the solution for me was to be in control of my own destiny. And I felt the best way to do that was to be a business owner. I kind of was leaning in the direction of real estate, but didn't really know at the time that it would be the type of business that I'm in now. But I always felt like, I was going to be an entrepreneur. And for me, that seemed like the only way I could assure myself that I would be able to take care of myself and my daughter, because I was controlling my destiny and my future.
I would say for me, I don't think I ever envisioned myself leaving corporate or a job sitting in an office building, but I did. And it started because I had several mentors that were leaving, retiring. I've been in corporate 10 years, think people come and go. So I had mentors retiring. I had friends leaving to go to other companies, downsizing, right sizing, that kind of thing, bringing in new talent. And I wasn't sure whether that was the place for me anymore. It felt like a different company. And I understand that companies need to change. But I think at that point, I realized that I knew my place, and I didn't feel that my place was in corporate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because my parents had drilled success into the heads of myself and my brother so much, we were driven. And so we had started talking about starting a business probably 5, 6, 7 years before I actually left corporate. So it was in the back of our minds that we would run our own business and be successful. And so at the point where, the layoffs and all of those things were happening, we really started looking for a business. I will tell you that I did not expect it to be signs, but it was an unexpected business that kind of crept up on us. We always say that everybody needs a sign. So I did expect to be working for myself, and it's turned out pretty well. So Pam, let me turn back to something that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned that you were a single mom. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been during COVID, running a company with single mothers, folks who are at home, but still having to raise their kids that are at home doing virtual schooling? Can you talk about how your experience affects or has impacted your decisions as a business leader, as far as how your employees have worked over the last year?
Well, my daughter is now totally independent and grown, okay, without revealing my age. So, but I think what it has done for me, because of what I had to go through as a single mother, running a business, starting a business, running a business, and being responsible for other people's lives as an employer. So that experience has caused me to be a lot more sensitive. And that heightened sensitivity, is reflected in some of our policies here. And, my desire to be as flexible as we possibly can to support people who have obligations, outside of the workplace, single mothers in particular, who have to, they can't work late, every night. They have to go to daycare and pick the kids up at a certain time, otherwise they're fine. And, there are going to be times when they have to call in because their child is sick. During COVID, we've been particularly flexible, and where necessary, we've allowed some of our employees to work remotely. So, I just think that, being a woman who has been through a lot of trials and tribulations, it does, bring, like I said, just a level of sensitivity that you might not get if you were, in a different type of situation.
Yeah. And how has the pandemic affected how you've operated as far as your existing businesses and your desire to purchase and sell?
Well, a lot of the business that we do on behalf of our clients requires a lot of interface with neighborhood people and tenants and owners, and a lot of that's been cut back, not just in my business, but throughout the city. We're doing a lot of Zoom calls, and we're meeting with our clients and discussing projects and working for them, through technology via Zoom. So we've been able to forge ahead, and we've been able to deal with the challenges and just kind of pivot and work around things. So, and that because of that, we haven't really, in terms of revenue, we really haven't seen a significant drop off.
That's
Mhm.
great. Ed, how about you?
Well, our whole world has gone virtual. And first of all, Pam, I commend you and every other single mother that's doing what you do. I think you're the heroes of our time. And having said that, in my world, we've gone virtual practically on everything. I have basically, in a sense, two businesses I run. One is the indoor billboard that was mentioned earlier, and the other one is my trust, which is a holding company for a real estate that I own. So, and that has its turn. So, but what I've done with that is I've used technology and a network of people that I've used in the past to manage that, where I pretty much don't even have no interaction with the tenants or anything like that. Everything is handled with technology and just a group of supporting uh, skills people who basically help me run it. So I've used technology to alleviate issues with that could be inherent with that kind of business. But Zoom has been the vehicle of choice for us, and the other thing that pandemic has also enabled me to do is to focus more time on my relationships. I think that relationship is the currency for the 21st century. So I've actually slowed down to spend time and invest in the relationships that matter to me.
Yeah, that's a great sentiment, Ed. For us, we have continued to operate through the pandemic, making signs. In the beginning, it was a little bit of a struggle to make sure that to I would say convince folks that we were an essential business. We do a lot of work for the city. We do a lot of work for the Sandy Springs police cars, graphics, that kind of thing, and that stuff goes on still. So we never fully shut down, but we obviously had to make efforts within the shop to make sure that when we were here, that we were distant from each other, wearing masks, cleaning, regularly cleaning to make sure that everybody was safe. But it was an interesting time because we saw a lot of customers come in who were restaurants fighting to stay open. We did a lot of signage indicating that restaurants had curbside pickup and to call ahead and things like that. And it was a struggle because some of our customers have since gone out of business. So it's been good that we've kept our doors open, but hurtful because we know that some of our longtime customers are no longer in business. But one day at a time with COVID. Thankfully, our team is still in place and we're still full time. But you never know. But it's just been really by the grace of God that we've still stayed open. And we do a lot of event driven work, and that hasn't necessarily come back. But I would say, leading a business that serves other businesses, and we do what we can to help them stay open has been really humbling in the last year. We realize that it's a gift to serve other businesses and to help them stay open. So it's been a real big takeaway for us in the last year. So let me just remind everybody who's tuned in that if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll probably have one or two more questions and then we'll go through the Q&A. So Pam, do you have any personal or professional goals that you set that you would like to knock out in the next year or two? And Ed, I'll ask you the same question.
Well, yeah, the pandemic definitely has afforded me more time to focus on family relationships and which I treasure. So I'm looking forward down the road to trying to work less and play more and even have more time for family and friends, so that's my personal goal. And my professional goal would be to, continue to, I guess, live my life in an impactful way, um, meaningful way so that I can, whenever possible, reach behind me and help someone else to get here, to get to the table. So I will continue I'm involved with a couple of organizations that focus on women. So I will continue down that path and, try to help people and mentor people, as I can and when I can.
That's great. That's a great thing. Ed, how about you?
On the personal side, I would look forward to traveling and continuing to invest in the relationships that matter to me, and also mentoring. I've picked up on that. And well, I've been doing that all my life, pretty much, all my professional career, but I want to do more. On the business side, as I mentioned earlier, I found out especially when I was running large groups in Civil and PwC, that I'm not cut out for a big business. I don't want to have a business that owns, hires too many, too many employees. I know my threshold, and I grow a company to that point and I sell it. And so my goal right now is to grow indoor billboard network to that point. I've brought in a great partner who's also a member of Leadership Sandy Springs. I'm not sure if he wants me to mention his name or not, but that's our goal, is to build the most successful indoor billboard network in all of Georgia. And the idea is to exit probably in the next 4 or 5 years. That's our goal. So that's what that would be on the professional side. And then thereafter, I do what I always do. I sell it, buy some more properties, and then look for the next business.
Gotcha. I would say for me personally, I will echo what Pam said. I realized that in the past and maybe currently as well, I think I work too many hours, and I am focusing on spending more time with my family. I used to come home and just continue to work after the shop closed. So I think family is important. Spending time with nephews is important. So I have made a commitment to myself that when I leave the shop, the work stays at the shop, and that time is dedicated to friends and family. Professionally, I own 2 businesses. And so for Fast Signs, of course, we are still in the sign business and looking to, increase our top line all the time. So if you ever need a sign, we're here. But also I started a coaching practice, as Jan mentioned at the top. And really the practice is focused on small business owners, folks like me, people who maybe spent a lot of time in corporate America and went to school and went to graduate school and did what they did because they were good at it. They made a lot of money at it. But perhaps that really wasn't what they really wanted to do. That really didn't tap into their purpose in life. So I coach people who are looking to drop out of corporate. I've affectionately called those folks corporate dropouts, and new small business owners to make sure as they move into their small business that they're in tune with their purpose, that their purpose stays at the front and center of their lives. So that's what I'm doing. And I will also say that Ed, thank you. Ed has mentored me for the 6 or 7 years I've known him off and on. And I remember when I first posed the idea of coaching to him, Ed said, "You can do it. Go ahead. You can do anything." So thank you for that.
Welcome. And that's the truth.
Thank you. So we're at 12:48. This is the time where we should slide over to questions in the chat. So I'm just going to read them out loud, and then we'll answer. So Ed, this question is for you. How did you meet your mentors? And the same question for Pam and me.
Both of them were accidental. And I met them in a gathering and listened to them and sought them out and sought their mentorship, I guess that's the word for it. And became probably the greatest relationships I ever had. So both of them were very accidental.
Yeah.
And then
I met my mentor through a professional association of appraisers that I belong to. And, we got together and started talking, and he said, I want to help you. So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I met my mentors through work, and I think, as all of us know, that when you perform at work, mentors sometimes seek you out. So that was the case for me. I think I sought one of my mentors out, and then the other one sought me out. So it was kind of a natural coming together, if you will. Okay, next question. What advice or wisdom do you share with your own children and family members in terms of what's important? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
What advice?
What advice or wisdom do you share with your own children or family
Okay.
in terms of what's important?
Well, for me, it's there are three things. The first thing is to never burn a bridge, ever. Okay, because you never know when you're going to need to fall back on that relationship. The second thing is never tell a lie. It's just not worth it. You're going to get caught. And then the third thing is never be afraid to speak truth to power, because in the end, that's always the best thing to do. So those are my three things that I constantly, in my family, those are my three things, and my friends.
For me, as you probably already guessed it, number one is dream as big as your little hearts can or minds can. And that's number one for me to my two daughters. And the second one is integrity. I think that integrity is the key to unlocking practically everything that has happened for me. When you say you're going to do something, do it. When you make a promise, keep it. And the third one is basically serve. You must serve others. You must, pick on something besides you or something besides what just benefits you or your family that you kind of devote a part of your life to. So those are the three things that I talk to my daughters about.
Okay. I think one of the over and over is to be the best, be great, do everything you can do to knock it out of the park, be thorough, don't leave any stone unturned, just knock it out, just go all the way through, give it your best effort. So next question that's come through is, how receptive have you found the Sandy Springs community to be in terms of doing business with minority-owned businesses?
Well, in my case, I have been fortunate in that I've done business with the city of Sandy Springs. A division of my company provides right-of-way acquisition services for public infrastructure projects. So we have worked on a number of projects for the city. And so I would say my experience was positive, and I think there is definitely a desire on the part of the city to ensure that there's a diversity of participation in, opportunities to do business with the city. That's been my experience.
And I'll say mine's also been, oh, can you hear me? Yeah, I'll say mine's always also been very positive. Business is a game of interaction, and having understood that, I think I've had very great relationships here in the city of Sandy Springs, and the ability to play in that game of interaction has been fruitful, and I've enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it.
And I think that people who live, in other areas of the region, particularly Black business owners, I think they would be surprised to know that, because I think the perception is Sandy Spring is like one of the most affluent communities in Georgia, at least in the region. And, that's like north of Buckhead, so it's probably even worse. In terms of, their perception that there is an inherent amount of racism that, perhaps penetrates through the city or whatever. So, but I'm, when I'm talking to my peers and business owners, I tell them that, it's actually the opposite, in that I urged them to register to do business with the city of Sandy Springs because it is an open city. Mhm.
Yeah, I will echo what both of you have said. Our experience doing business with the city, and we do a large amount of business with the city, has been great. I think they have had really no issue with the fact that we bought this business from another owner. So day one, we were the new owners, and they just kept rolling with us, putting in orders, continuing the work that they ask us to produce. And so, in fact, over the last couple of years, it's increased. And I think that is, as Pam said, one thing that people may not suspect about Sandy Springs is that it is a very welcoming business community. We have enjoyed working with the city. A lot of the business owners know each other, and the opportunity for us to do work for the city has just increased. Of course, you have to perform, and we have.
Right.
But I can't say enough about the support. The city, even if there's something we can't do, they will come and ask us if we can do it first before they go elsewhere. So we really appreciate that opportunity. There are a number of city officials who are also leadership alumni who come through the doors and order things. We have many police officers who come in with their cars to have graphics work done on them. They know myself and my brother by name. So I really think that it's been a great situation for us as far as being new business owners, being African-American business owners within Sandy Springs.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have time for just one more question. Okay, so the last question is, what would you share with folks who are tuned in who want to be allies and supportive of the Black community in this time?
Well,
It might be a bit for the last question.
I assume you mean, well, I'm going to answer the question based on my assumption. The only thing I would say is I would ask all my white friends, my white brothers and sisters, to acknowledge that white privilege is real. And while acknowledging that, don't be afraid of it. There's nothing wrong with privilege. And also, as a human being, understand that most people who found privilege either walked into it, inherited it, or however it happened to them, don't necessarily want to give it up. That's understandable. And that's reasonable to understand that. However, the real question is, how do you use your white privilege? How do you use it? Do you use it for good? Or do you use it for bad? Or do you use it just to benefit yourself? There's nothing wrong with privilege of any sort. The question is, how do you use it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you use it for change? Do you use it to speak out when you see injustice? Do you use it to impact good change? So I love you all, but I just want you to understand that it's no longer enough to be a non-racist. You have to be anti-racist. So don't be silent when things happen that you know deep inside you are wrong. Speak up, use your privilege, and do something good with it. I guarantee you, you will feel better, your life is going to be fulfilled, and you will make the world better. That is my 2 cents. Actually, I don't give 2 cents answers anymore. It's worth a quarter now. That's my quarter.
I think it's
That was great, and thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I can't. That would be, well, the only thing I can say is this. I know sometimes it's hard to step outside your comfort zone, but I think during these times, it's important that we all try to do that because that's the way you build bridges. So what that means is that it would probably be helpful, if maybe you consider reaching out to someone who you normally would not reach out to. And also, it would be good in terms of understanding their experience if you just learned more about them culturally. And there's a lot of things that you can do to become informed. For example, you can maybe go to a Black church one Sunday, okay? Or you can make an effort to join a mixed club, a social club. So, I mean, there's so many things that I think people can do individually to become more enlightened, about, our experience, as Black people living in America. And just to echo what Ed is saying, I mean, acknowledging the fact that you're privileged and have been privileged is probably the first step. And the next step, in my opinion, would be to, break outside of that, isolated world that you're in and really make an effort to learn more about our communities, diverse communities in particular. That would go a long way, I think, in building bridges.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Ed. I'll turn it back to Jen.
All righty. Thank you. I'm going to be very brief in the wrap up because you ended on such an inspirational high note. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your successes. Thank you for sharing your challenges. Thank you for being authentic in your stories and sharing it. It's not always easy, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate that you shared your vulnerabilities too. I mean, thank you so much. What a terrific way to start off our new series, and we're deeply appreciative. So thank you. Just quickly, I want to remind you that next month we're going to have one more of our Live, Learn, Lead at noon with our Sharing Your Stories. Next month is Women's History Month, International Women's Month. And so we're going to be focusing on 3 women who have done tremendous things throughout society, have had an impact on our society, on our community. And we look forward, we hope that you come back and we'll be getting more information out about our next Live, Learn, Lead at noon, our Sharing Our Stories. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We appreciate it. And we hope to see you back here next month.